Lamed Daled, 1974, which was a Maamar that Rebbe said on the second day of Tamuz. Now, the excerpts that we're going to learn is based, like many of the Rebbe's Maamarim, they're based on Maamarim of previous Rabbeim. Most often, it's based on Maamarim of the previous Rebbe. The Rebbe always connects this month, the month of Tamuz, as very powerfully connected with the previous Rebbe and his redemption, both the partial redemption that took place on the 3rd of Tamuz, where instead of being in prison, he was sentenced to 3 years of exile, and then following that, the complete freedom in the 12th and 13th of Tamuz, that he was completely released even from exile. So, interestingly enough, now the previous Rebbe had said different Maamarim in connection with his freedom. There was a Maamar that he said when he was at the train station, I believe. There was a Sikha he said at the train station on the 3rd of Tammuz when he was being transported. There was obviously the Maamarim said on the 12th of Tammuz. But the Maamar that the Rebbe is going to explain now and take from now is a Maamar that the previous Rebbe said or wrote while he was in prison. It was said on Rish Chodesh Tammuz Tafresh Pei Zayin, 1927, while the previous Rebbe was in his jail cell. To whom did he say it, or for whom, or how he wrote it? That is a question for historians. So we'll begin, and I will take selective excerpts of it. It gets very technical in some parts, and we'll just try to extract those parts. That's the primary parts having to do with Bitochon. So let's begin.
Who wrote down this Maamar? Who wrote down the Maamar?
So I'm not sure. It could be I think the Frierdiker Rebbe writes about him writing down certain things on cigarette paper. They used to give the prisoners not necessarily writing paper, but they gave him cigarette paper to make cigarettes, and I think the previous Rebbe used that for writing different things down. Perhaps, I don't know this for a fact, perhaps he wrote this Maamar down that way. So let's begin from line 25. A few lines in the bottom of the page. And the Rebbe quotes something from the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maamar at the beginning. The Maamar starts off with the pasuk Min HaMeitzah Krosika, from my constraints and my suffering I call out to Hashem. And then Umamshich B'Maamar Levayim Mashakosav Bitochon B'Havaya Adi Ad. And the Maamar, the previous Rebbe, continues to explain what it says: trust in Havaya forever and ever. That's a simple meaning. We're going to explain a deeper meaning to the Adiyad. Ki biyudke Havaya tzurei lamim. Because with Yudke and Yudke Vavke, he formed worlds. Let's skip over the parentheses to line 29. The Pirusha, the meaning of this pasuk is Bitochon b'Havaya tzarich liyos Adiyad. That the trust in Havaya has to be not like we explained in the simple meaning, forever, but ad means until ad. Hainu ad bechinas madreges ad, until one reaches the level of ad. I will tell you that in the Maamar later on, the Rebbe will explain clearer what is this level called ad. He hasn't yet said, and he will give two explanations what the ad is referring to. So, but before we get there, so the Rebbe says in the parentheses, the Bitochon yesh kama madreges. In trust in Hashem, there are many levels. La madrega yisrael yoni adi ad, and the highest level of trust in Hashem is when one reaches the level of ad. Vitam hadavar, the reason for this trust in all the way to reaching the level of ad, lefi yudke havaya tzorei lamim, because with yudke, so havaya formed the worlds. Lefi sheishavas ha'olam esi b'shtei oisis harishonos d'shem havaya shem yudke, because the coming into being of the worlds is in the two first letters of Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Shem Yud Kei. Ka'amram Zechroinu Levracha, like the Chazal said, B'Yud Nivra Olam Haba, with the letter Yud, Olam Haba was created, the world to come. U'B'Hei Nivra Olam Hazeh, with the letter Hey, this world was created. That's why it says, Ki B'Ka Havai Tzur Elam. With the Yud Kei, he formed worlds in the plural, meaning not just our physical world, but also the world to come. So first he's going to bring something that the Mittler Rebbe explains about this Bitochon, that it has to reach to the level of Ad. And this level of Ad he's going to talk about is going to be a lower level of Ad. So he says, the idea behind this is, according to what's written in the explanations of the Zohar of the Mittler Rebbe and the explanations of the Zohar of the Tzemach Tzedek, that they had a specific sefer devoted to explaining the Zohar. Both of them, they had what a sefer called Biyuri HaZohar, that they explained she'inyan ha-bitochon hu rak bebchinas Ad. The idea of trust is only in the level of Ad. The koi al sfiras ha-malchus, it's referring to the sfira of Malchus. Why is it referring to sfiras ha-malchus? Ki aloshen adi ad kosherim inyan azman, because the expression, the simple meaning of adi ad, it means forever. Forever has to do with the idea of time. And as Chassidus always explains, time and place, sheshar shemisfiras ha-malchus, the source of time is from the sfira of Malchus. Because we say, Hashem Melech, Hashem Molech, Hashem Yimloch. Hashem reigned, Hashem reigns, and Hashem did reign, He will reign. The whole idea of past, present, and future all comes from Malchus. Higher than Malchus, there's no concept of time whatsoever. So therefore, Adayad means that the Bitochon reaches all the way to the level of Malchus. There's a higher level of Ad that he's going to explain now. Ad l'klolus b'chinas ze'er ampin. Until the highest level of Ze'er Ampin, Kimerumas, until the general idea of the Ze'er Ampin, which is the Midos, the seven Midos, the seven emotional attributes of Hashem, Kimerumas b'tevas Ad, like it's hinted in the word Ad, Ki ayin hu Ze'er Ampin, shekoilol shavasfiris kol echad kol me'eser. The ayin of Ad is going on the Ze'er Ampin because ayin is the numerical equivalent of 70, and 70 is the 7 spheres, the way each one includes the 10 spheres in it. So that's why 70 is going on Ze'er Ampin on the Midas. The Dalid hu ha-Malchus, and the level of Dalid, that's the sphere of Malchus. As Chassidus explains in other places, Dalet stands for Dibur, or other reasons why it has to do with Malchus. So now he explains the idea behind it. Why does Bitochon have to do with the Midos? The root of trust in Hashem is in the level of Hashem's emotional character traits, His emotional attributes. It's a metaphor, just like a person that trusts in the love that his fellow has for him. That's also the idea of the trust in Hashem. That comes from the level of the powerful strength of the emotional attributes of love and awe. That his heart is set and confident in Hashem. That he will not desert his kindness and his love from this person. He will not let that Hashem's kindness will leave this person, and instead he will be and he will assist him and he will fulfill the person's requests and needs. Higher than the level of Ad, that is the level of Yud-K that we spoke about. Over there, the person's trust does not reach Ki sham hu tachlis habitul shalamayla madregas ha'ava she'emenu nimshcha bitochon. Over there, it's complete sublimation. So the whole idea of love, that from that comes about a person's trust, that he trusts in his true, in the one that loves him, his friend. So over there is in this initial explanation, Bitochon doesn't apply. And then he goes on and says, as opposed to a state of bittul, someone that feels sublimated to Hashem, which is the feeling that's evoked through Hashem's higher levels, Yudke, which goes on Chachma and Bina. Chachma is Koyach Ma, the level of bittul. Nimshach harichuk v'ashiflus, this evokes by a person the feeling that he's low and that he's distant. She'ozloi shayach kol kach, then it's not so applicable. Sheyeh etzloi hergish al bitochon li'is liboi nochin b'tuach blishum sofik. He doesn't have so much this feeling of trust that he's totally, completely confident, without a doubt. Another way of looking at the Rebbe says, v'yesh levayir gam boi fin achra, we can explain this in another way. She'inyan ha-bitochon hu mitzad zeh shemekayim toiro mitzvahs bato la-kadosh baruch hu. The idea of the bitochon is because, why does he trust and have faith and confidence in Hashem? Because he fulfills Torah mitzvahs and he's nullified to Hashem. The kivun sheb-ha-bittul poel hashras hashchina, since when a person has bittul through his Torah mitzvahs, it causes the Shechina to dwell, so he's like bringing Hashem closer into his life. Therefore, he could rely and trust that his requests will be fulfilled. The Chayvus Alvav in Shar Bitochon says a similar idea, that a person can't just have Bitochon without any type of background of a relationship with Hashem. You need to have a relationship with Hashem through Torah mitzvahs, and then when you show that you have a relationship with Hashem with your Torah mitzvahs, then you can have trust and confidence that Hashem will fulfill what you need from Him. So, in a similar vein, he's saying over here, when a person does Torah mitzvahs, so he affects that the Shechina comes down. The Shechina comes down, he has now a relationship, he has now a connection with Hashem, so he's trusting in that. And then the Rebbe says there are levels that are higher than Torah mitzvahs, that over there we can't say that in that level there's an idea of trust and faith in Hashem. Omnam inyan ze shayach rak b'dargesh Hashem negia inyan Torah mitzvahs. This is only applicable on a level that over there Torah mitzvahs can reach. As we know, there are levels that are beyond our reach with Torah mitzvahs, even though the Rebbe explains that really avoida and the service reaches all the way to Hashem's essence. Let's skip over to line 11. Actually, let's skip over to line 22. Ois Hey. So he says further, Ach yesh oid pirush be'inim Bitochon v'avaya ad yad. There's really another explanation in what the ad is that we're referring to. Trust and Havaya ad. And here introduced us a totally new meaning in this context of the word ad. We first said the simple meaning. Simple meaning ad means forever. Another meaning is till you reach the level of ad, and ad has to do with malchus, and ad has to do with zeir ampin, with the midos. Now he's going to introduce a third meaning in the word ad. Sha'ade hu maloshin vatavoi ba'adiyadaim. Ad is like it says in the pasuk, and you came in adorned with jewelry. Kepirish Rashi shaloshin ad k'may bitchu b'Hashem adeyad. That jewelry is something that is called also ad. And then he says, Shu inyan akishutim. It's adornments, the things that we wear that enhances us. There's clothing. Clothing is like a basic garment. Adayim, that shows on something that is made to adorn the person, that's over the top, that's a luxury and a beautification. So he says in line 26, Umavur, L'Likutei Torah Pikudei, in L'Likutei Torah on Parsh Pikudei, it's explained that the level of Adei Ad, the level of Kishutim, adornments, jewelry, Shekoy al Bechinas HaKeser Shalamaylam Mishtalshlos. It's referring to the level of Keser that's beyond the level, the chain order of descent of all the worlds. Because just like a crown, just like a physical crown is something that adds to the person's beauty, is luxury, it's above the person, it's not your normal garment. So the same thing, it means Bitochon v'avaya adeyad. So this is, instead of ad being just the level of Malchus or Malchus and Ze'er Anpin, but in Yudke you don't have the level of Bitochon. So instead of that, he says, no, it's really a higher level. It's really the Bitochon reaches all the way to Keser. So let's skip down to line 31, the last line on the page. Ach davke mitzad bechinazu, only out of this level. Shayich inyan ha-bitochon, specifically because of this level, the whole idea of trust and confidence in Hashem comes about. Like the Maamar explains that this Maamar that the Frierdiker Rebbe said or wrote when he was in prison says that the level of Adi Ad, that it says in the Pasuk, you should trust in Hashem until the level of Ad, that's the level that transcends and encompasses the world. What's the idea of that level? Because let's remember also the background of what the Frierdiker Rebbe is saying, about to say over here. The Frierdiker Rebbe was faced with terrible challenges on Torah mitzvahs. So he's saying that the challenges of exile against Torah mitzvahs is something that's only possible because of the level of Memal Kalam. So we need to come on to and have trust in the Tzeiv of Kalam that's going to overcome those challenges. So let's see in line 3. The entire idea that there are different obstacles and things that stand in the way of studying Torah and fulfilling mitzvahs is a result of exile. Where does exile come from? When you have the chain order of descent, you have the level of the godly light that fills the world and is tailored according to the world and is constricted. So because it's constricted and tailored according to the world, there could be a situation where if for whatever reason we have caused things to be in a state of exile, so then the godly light that's limited and constricted can be covered over. And it can be a situation where our Torah mitzvahs will be impacted, there will be difficulties to be able to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. He says in line 6, as opposed to the level of Soiv Kalam, and over there, all bets are off. There's no limitations whatsoever. It's totally beyond Seder Ishtalshlos. When Soiv Kalam comes into play, so then even when there are things that normally would block Torah mitzvahs, Soiv Kalam, the transcendent light that encompasses all the worlds, nothing can stand in its way. So he says in line 7, in Reishis Chacham it explains the meaning of the pasuk, trust upon him. It doesn't say trust him, but trust upon him and he will do. That this word olav, upon him, your trust is upon him, is like it says, throw on havaya your load. The Pirish al Havaya, what's the meaning about upon Havaya you should throw your load? Meaning, Hainu Bechina Shalamayla Mishem Havaya. That this trust is from a level that's higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's higher than the chain order of descent that Yudke Vavke indicates. Therefore, the trust and faith and confidence is from the inner level of Keser, known as the holy level of Atik, that's beyond the midos that we spoke about before. It's also explained over there in the Reishis Chachma that we spoke about. That the trust and faith in Hashem comes down from the providence of Hashem, the constant providence of the open eye, that Hashem's eye is always open and watching over us. Concerning this level, it says, behold, he will not sleep and will not slumber. So in that level, in the level of Atik, what does it mean he is not sleep and not slumber? In other words, there's no covering, there's no concealment. Over there, it can overcome any limitations. As opposed to the midos, it's possible, since, like we said before, it's Seder Ishtalshlos, it's constricted, it's limited, it's possible something else can cover it over. Let's skip over to line 22. I'm sorry. Let's skip over to the next page. So again, we were talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe said this while he was being imprisoned and when Yidden were suffering in the Soviet Union. So he said, "V'hine k'dei lagia l'madrega nailas zu," to be able to reach this elevated state of the Bitochon all the way in Keser, in the level that's higher than Seder Ishtalshalos. It's specifically through a state of confinement, constriction, restriction. Then we're calling out from the difficulties. A very constricted, strained, and uncomfortable place. Like someone that's imprisoned, which was the exact situation that the Frierdiker Rebbe was when he said this Maamar. Like the previous Rebbe brings at the beginning of that Maamar, when he talks about Minam Meitzar, he gives different examples of what the Meitzar is, and one of the examples is someone that's imprisoned. Like the Maamar, the Frierdiker Rebbe explains, only through pressing and being under pressure, the person reaches a much higher level than if he does things out of comfort. Like the Chazal say that the Torah does not exist, meaning it does not remain as a constant. Only someone that totally devotes himself and is willing to sacrifice himself for it. Then the light of Torah enlivens him. Instead of him, chas v'sholem, actually losing his life, he's actually enlivened and vitalized through the Torah. That's what it says, min ha-meitzar, the be'ez ha-meitzar, belachatz, and it's time of a situation of pressure and discomfort and so on, until it's like too difficult to even handle it. So then the calling out is all the way to Yudke, going on the highest, most levels, the levels of Keser and so on. And then he responds to me in the broadness of Yudke. That's also the idea that David HaMelech said, he redeemed me in peace. And what's the peace that Hashem redeems him with? Shu Torah Oyer, the Torah which is light, is also called peace. The Chalois B'Torah, Tal Torah Machayeh, whoever is involved in Torah, the dew of Torah, it says, enlivens him, just like the dew of Mashiach's times came to wake up the neshamas that flew out of their bodies during the giving of the Torah by Matan Torah. Let's skip over the parentheses to Ois Zayin, line 16. This is a lesson for every single Jew. and not just a lesson. And it's also an empowerment that comes from the leader of the generation, that he opened up the channel for this to be done. We should not take in consideration any obstacles or any difficulties, even things that conceal and cover over. A person should go with full confidence on his way, and out of joy. As it's known, the very going out to war in a state of joy affects the victory. That's why the Rebbe always explains this is the reason why we go out to war with a victory march. Seemingly it's the wrong time when we should be singing a victory march. After the war is over, after we defeated the enemy, that's the time for the victory march. But no, we go out right away with a song of victory, with an uplifting song, because that itself, that joy itself, enables us to be victorious. And through this are nullified all the obstacles and all those things that stand in the way, that conceal and cover over. Like earlier in the Maamar, the Rebbe brought down a metaphor, how a powerful river is flowing, that it just goes on its path. Because it's a powerful river, it floods anything that blocks it. You try to dam it up, it totally destroys everything in its way that will block it. So the same thing by us. Now we have this great power of just going with trust and confidence, and it overwhelms everything else that will stand in our way of accomplishing what we have to accomplish. The Rebbe earlier in the Maamar spoke about that there's a level of Aaron, Kohen Gadol. He was from the level of Rav Chesed, the much goodness, the level that's kindness that's higher than Seder Ishtalshlus. It goes down, it's drawn down the way that speedily his word shall rush. Just like the Aaron's staff blossomed and it gave forth almonds, which earlier in the Maamar he spoke about, that the uniqueness of almonds is that it ripens quicker than any other fruit, indicating how the brachos of Aaron come, make sure everything comes down quickly. According to what's known concerning what Aaron was told, that when you raise up the candles, so therefore that Aaron's job is to raise up all the Neshamas Yisrael that are called candle of Hashem, is the soul of man. So from Aaron's power of great kindness, that it comes, overwhelms and floods all types of obstacles. It comes down to the general neshamas of the Yidden and to every individual Yid. Like the pasuk says, you will be collected one by one, the house of Yisrael. And in such a way that Aaron is the same letters like the word visible and appear. That the light will come down below, so it should be visible, the light to the eyes of flesh. It should happen immediately, right today.